Gonna give you up, will let you down.
Access to swimming. She goes, go take your laptop and go work in the pool. Hey, Adam.
How do?
Long time no see.
Indeed. How have you been?
Not too bad. How about you?
I've been very well, thank you. I see Wendy from time to time, but it's nice to see to show your face on this.
They don't let me out of my cage very often.
I don't let anybody have a vacation in Pennsylvania.
That's true.
That's right. My mom lives near Mercersburg on a farm there.
Okay.
And so, yeah, it's the same scaling as going on everywhere else. So.
Yeah. So I have 301. We'll give it a couple, maybe a minute or so. I'm going to share my screen. So I'm sure we'll have some folks pop on. The goal today, or at least the intended objective, is to kind of walk through some data, some research. You know, obviously there's a lot of crazy stuff going on, and then have a discussion as it relates to how does this impact our business, your business, and the clients that you serve. Because obviously, you know, after 2008 happened, we were talking about the new normal, and I don't think those words can really apply here. I'm not sure what we're going to call it, if anything, but it's certainly going to be different in how your clients are going to work, how they interact with their employees. There's going to be a lot of changes. But as I've been doing a lot of research, we're in the process of revising the leadership process. So I've been doing more reading and research than usual, but it's been very timely as it relates to what we've all been experiencing. So the whole concept is how do we get to the other side and emerge victoriously, and what can you do to help your clients? And you're already doing a lot, but I think there's a lot of data out there that you can use with your clients to say, have you thought about this? You know, when they come back up for air, which, you know, they should soon, even if they're still in yellow or whatever color it is. So the whole concept is emerge victoriously. And and if you want the article, I can get it to you, but there was a really well done article done by, okay, why are you not progressing? By McKinsey. That was just done in May, so it's incredibly timely. And I think we're going to be on the precipice of some new buzzwords, and I think reskilling is going to be one of them. You know, if you've been in this industry a while, as most of you have, you know, there's always new buzzwords, and I think we're about to have a whole bunch of new words that are going to be relative to what we do with clients. So basically, you can read the screen, you know, to emerge stronger, companies need to start reskilling their workforces now. And although it's new vocabulary, it's very consistent with what we do. So I wanted to walk through some discussion points and then really turn it over to the group to say and ask 3 questions. How does this situation and this new information impact the way you market? How does it impact your fact-finding process? And how does it impact your facilitation? So, you know, the learning landscape has changed. One of the things that's going to be impacting the facilitation is how our group's going to come together. Fortunately, Trusted Advisors made a very good decision, unbeknownst to us, to invest in an updated LMS process before we even knew what COVID-19 is. Many of you on this call have used version 2.0 successfully, but there's going to have to be a lot of discussion in how you're going to be interacting with your clients and what the client is going to allow. So that whole concept of, you know, getting the live learning process into a video and social sharing format. You know, there's a lot of articles out there about, you know, everybody is zoomed out. Whether it's a Zoom product or something else, I don't It's not going away.
Can I stop you for a minute? Can I ask you a
Sure.
question?
Please. Go for it.
I don't want, I'll make a suggestion. I'm just asking if it's on your mind, that we make a kind of a corporate decision that we've left the world of paper, and that everything, and it doesn't mean that somebody demands that they could get it or whatever, but it's now the normal that we do digitally everything.
Mm-hmm.
Now there'll be resistance, and somebody will say, no, I really want whatever. But I've kind of done that in my practice. I won't meet with anybody face to face. Everything I'm going to do is going to be Zoom. And I am now, could I change that in 3 months? Sure, I could.
Sure.
But for the moment, the clients that have not moved to Zoom will either move to Zoom or they won't be my clients.
Yeah.
And these are people I've been working with a long time. And the people that I'm speaking to now, and I just got my first client in Maryland, and I've signed up a couple of other people that are local, but we're only meeting on Zoom. And that is that's it. And that's how we're doing now. That's the way we work.
Yeah.
Now, I'm just suggesting a trusted advisor. Doesn't have to do what I'm doing, but yet everything will now be digital.
Mm-hmm. And I think overall, Arnie, that is a fair decision. Ever since Pennsylvania, or our county, Berks County, has been able to go yellow, we have shipped some hard copy, but the facilitation is going to be, digital. We've had some folks have had some coaching clients where they said, I need a time strategies, or I need, 3 leadership, and we're shipping it directly to the client.
Well,
and
the only thing I might suggest is, if somebody wants it hard copy, great. Here's how you print it.
Yeah, that's a possibility.
And so that you get out of the selling printing, unless you say, no, we make a lot, whatever. Get out of the printing business. Get out of the selling of the same. I mean, when I came into the network, everything was on a tape, and then we went to CDs, and now we go to downloading whatever. And so that I think we need to do that. It's taking the bull, doing it, using this to move us to that. I'll go back to mute.
No, you're fine. Thank you for that input. It's only a moment till you'll come off mute again, but that's okay. So, but I mean, to Arnie's point, this whole concept, and I'm sure all of you are thinking about it, and how can we learn together as it relates to facilitating and doing and providing that product. Put on your calendars the town hall on the 30th when we unveil the LMS, because I know some of you haven't used that. For those of you who have, one of the neat things that's getting added to this 3.0 version is there's going to be a facilitator dashboard, where literally you can upload exercises, you can monitor the progress of your participants. 2.0 was really much a duplication of the hard copy. 3.0 is going to be much more intuitive from a facilitator perspective. So we're going to do that on the 30th at 3 o'clock. So if you don't have that on your calendar, would really recommend that you do so.
And Tammy?
Yes, please.
And as usual, it will be recorded, right?
Yes.
Okay, great.
Yes. So some new skill trends that they're talking about. This whole new skills from a distance economy. There's so many organizations that had to, through this pandemic, repurpose employees. There's a lot of case studies. Some companies, truck drivers became heavy equipment operators. In the banking industry, with the surge of refinance and mortgage applications because the interest rates dropped, there were a bunch of folks that got retrained into the mortgage and the mortgage role. They're cross-training, for those particular purposes. And not everybody's going to go back to where they came from. So even though the reasons are different, companies are going to have to do more with less. And we all know what that looks like. The people who don't get to go back, are bummed for a short period of time. The people who go back get to be bummed and demotivated because now they have to do the job of 3 people instead of the job that they just had. So a lot of these issues are not new to us. they're just being handed to us in a new frame. The concept of the imbalance of the talent and the supply. And you have two very distinct industries. Restaurant and food, 42% of that industry, their jobs became vulnerable. Whereas you have grocery store chains that are hiring millions of people and can't hire them fast enough. So again, you're going to have organizations that have to do more with less. And there's no way you can tell me, even the best grocery chain, and we all experience them personally, that they are training their new hires to a level of efficiency and effectiveness. There's no possible way. I don't care who you are. And there's organizations that are making major supply chain choices, whether they're moving things closer to them. Some people are outsourcing overseas, but process improvement, I believe, when we started seeing all of these changes, and I've been talking with some of you individually about this, and the consensus, and many of you, concur, that process improvement is going to be huge because so many things are going to get and have to be retooled. Organizations that retooled for sustainability and green. I mean, there's going to be so many things that have to be retooled in business organizations, from the HVAC to, all across processes. And I know not all of you are in the process improvement business, but you may want to think about it, because I think a lot of organizations are going to start there. And a lot of you in my individual conversations, some of you not on this call, have concurred with that. So in this McKinsey research, they basically are saying there's 6 steps to reskilling. First, identify the skills of your recovery business model depends on. And again, this is where I think you guys are critical to the solution here, because so many organizations don't know what to do, or they're just managing the panic, that they're not thinking or taking the time to think strategically about what's their new business model going to look like. And do they know what skills have to be there that are critical? And this was a quote from a Harvard business, and I don't recall who said it, and I just modified it for this slide. It's really grasping and understanding the difference between what's a timeless principle in our organization, what can we not live without, and opposed to daily practices that, so we don't want to throw the baby out with the bathwater, but we also want to make sure that, and are they so focused on solving the immediate challenge problem, or do they have their head in the sand that they can't even figure that out? What are the best skills? That they need your critical fact-finding eye to ask the right questions. Build employee skills that are critical to the model, and here were some suggestions. Again, to Arnie's point, expand the ability to operate in a fully digital environment. And although people adapted pretty quickly, how are they going to continue to take that forward? Develop the skills necessary for key players to know how to respond, to redesign, and innovate. I appreciate that some of you are really into it and taking a lot of fast and furious notes. This PowerPoint will be up with the video. So Rick stopped writing. A big part of what we do that's in our processes already, and the insight that you bring to the table, is the social and emotional skills for collaboration. How do we collaborate in a digital market? Not market, I apologize, but in a digital environment. And collaboration in this process is going to be so huge. And to help people build resilience and adaptation skills, so they learn to come out of this in a thriving way, not just a coping way. Because we as human beings are meant to thrive. And I think overall, a lot of people have done well at coping. But quite frankly, I think we all have our personal experience of it. Coping gets old after a while. All 4 of these, in my opinion, are distinctly in your wheelhouse. And because of the personal side of the action plan, we deal with some of those social and emotional skills, as well as the thriving, really, really well. Some other thoughts there. Again, very consistent with what we already do, but we're going to have to look at it a little bit different and, create a tailored approach. Every company's going to be slightly different. One size is not going to fit every situation. I think the next two go hand in hand. There are a lot of large companies that are going to struggle with this because they're not agile. So help them strategically create a mindset, a culture, whatever you want to call it, that gets them to start thinking about acting and operating like a small company. And then as they make changes, start as soon as possible. There's some statistics coming up that the longer you wait, the more it's going to cost you. And I know people aren't in the mood to spend money right now, but this too shall end, right? So start as soon as possible, test often, and test frequently. But I think larger organizations can strategically, with your help, start thinking like a small company so that they can be more agile, more quick, they can test and measure, and if it didn't work, move on to something else. You can read the screen, but this statistic I found fascinating because I never saw any data on this as it relates to the world going squirrely in the financial Great Recession in 2008. But according to Training Industry, they have done some significant research that there wasn't money being spent in 2009 on training expenditures or 2010. And there was a huge increase in 2011. But basically what they're saying is, you're not delaying an investment. You're not creating any savings. And they're suggesting that the skill shift is even larger, and I think we would all concur, than the financial crisis. The financial crisis was different, but this country's been through economic crises before. They might have been defined by different things. They may have looked and felt different, but we've been in a recession before. So some of the things felt similar. Nobody's been, yeah.
Just a quick on this. What this slide says right now. This is exactly why the Emerging Leaders Academy became. They saw that there was no training done in that 07, 08, 09, that industry, and they lost that whole time frame up until we started it in 15, 16.
Yeah.
So 8 years of nothing. They lost it. So that's exactly why. That's great data and affirmation.
Yeah, and that's a great case study. Thank you. I did not know that was the impetus for that Emerging Leaders Academy. So the whole concept of embracing, I've even practiced this stupid word, but you can read it. I'm not saying it out loud because I'm going to screw it up. But Harvard Business Review put together a special edition this spring, and it's called How to Lead in Time of Crisis. It's a special edition, and basically there are articles that they've collected on things that happened after 9/11, 2008, and this quote comes from that. I don't think, normal is defined as, conforming to a standard. I don't think anything is going back to the way it was. And I really was kind of hit over the head, that whole concept of we need to manage and lead in conflict, chaos, confusion, and change so the disturbance becomes productive rather than destructive. And I don't know that we're going to have a new normal or what the world is going to call it, but I think that going forward, in our conversations with potential clients is how are you managing disturbance? Because there's going to be another one. We just don't know what it is. Right?
Tammy?
Arnie? Yeah.
I don't want to talk over it. Lauren, are you going to say something? Okay. are you going to, as trusted advisors, create some kind of marketing message that can go out that the affiliates can follow up on somehow, some way?
To our conversation the other day, Arnie?
Not necessarily that one, but yeah. I mean, that was in one area what we talked about. But the more you're saying this is great. I mean, the stuff that's on here is we trusted advisors is basically 2 years old.
Correct.
And so we were born in the
Two
world
years,
that we're.
2 years old on Sunday.
I was approximate. It was about July 1st, but I could be off a little. But the point being is, what a wonderful entree that, and so that one of the things in the slide before, or maybe the slide before that, big companies should operate like small companies.
Right.
Well, when we use terms like big and small, the government always believes that a small company is anything up to 500 employees. And for me, that would be a frigging giant.
It's all relative.
Of course, who's relative, but nevertheless. So the point being is our market should be 100 to 500 employees. And that those are what we should go after. And I'm not sure a whole lot of us are selling anything or working with anything, Rick Colster not accepted, should be working with, not should be, but has opportunity with really long, big clients. And so utilizing the power of our corporate, meaning trusted advisor, and that we create things to market to larger companies. Even if we're doing it as individual affiliates, but we're identifying 20, 30, 40 companies that meet that realm, and that we create what trusted advisor is expert at doing this. And that's the key. And we've always called ourselves agent of change and all the other stuff, but now we really need to be helping clients change. And our markets, those that are 100 to 500 employees, that's worth a dialogue.
Yeah, I would concur.
But I'm saying that each one of us can't create the marketing. That's the point I'm getting at.
Yeah, I'm hearing you loud and clear.
Okay.
Yeah. So with this information, I wanted to make this a discussion, not just a presentation. How is it gonna? I mean, in my opinion, there's three main buckets of the affiliates that we work with. You're marketing yourself to generate clients. You're inside an organization doing a fact finding to see if you can help, and you're delivering your solution. So just like Arnie, that's a great idea. I wrote it down. How is this going to change what you do differently, and how can we learn from each other? So I wanted to take the second half of this learning lab and open it up to the group and discuss.
I don't want to dominate, but I got another suggestion.
Go for it.
When I say I've reinvented myself, I really have. And I'm only going to work with clients that will embrace the change of today and are aggressively going after it. And I would almost say I'd love to see trusted advisors in our marketing. Yeah, whoever will sign a check we would work with. I don't want to be that. I want to self-select clients. I want to find people that have a desire to learn and grow, and will embrace what needs to be embraced as we're moving forward. Now, as I say, everybody will do what they're doing and however it works, but it's like when you aim for 10 and you do 8, you can be happy, but if you aim for 50, you fall short and only do 35. So I'd like to aim for a specific kind of client.
So we know the 3 questions on the table, and thank you for getting us started. I'm going to stop sharing just so it's easier to see. So who else has got some thoughts? Well, I'm sure you've been thinking about it.
I've got some thoughts.
Go for it.
It starts with an experience. Rick knows of this experience. I don't know if anyone here on the call knows, but one way or another, I put together a daily Zoom call for my clients, daily. It started off with some information that we're giving them, helping them through the crisis. It ended a couple weeks ago when people started really going back to work more than they had been. And I learned a lot through that. I learned some of what you mentioned, Tammy, that is missing. I think the need for human contact is and will always remain strong. I think that that's what people are, they've had it with Zoom calls. They want to meet face to face. They want to get together. I don't care if it's social distance or whatever. I had my first in-person meeting yesterday, and it felt great. And we were 6 feet apart, and it was outside, and it was marvelous. I think people will crave that. The other thing I saw was that by collaborating business to business, and we can facilitate this, the ideas come much faster than me delivering something specifically to a client. What I saw were ideas passed throughout this country amongst different types of businesses, amongst my clients, and people, it morphed into people that weren't my clients. And it was incredible to the point where I decided to stop it because of Delaware moving to yellow. The attendees said, no, we can't stop this. You have to continue to do this because it's become such a big part of my life, and it's helped me overcome the obstacles that I faced from the start of this pandemic or new normal, whatever you want to call it. So some of the things you mentioned here in terms of the human skills, cognitive skills, emotional skills, collaboration, adaptability, those are things that to me are immense. They're more important than many of the other things right now. People have their basic skill set, but they do not know how to do this. I'll give you one more example, then I'll let other people speak. My son works for Amazon. He is a manager for Amazon in Phoenix. He and his wife both are managers. And when they had to go remote, and the hardest thing for him to handle was managing 15 people they have their own internal Zoom technology. Instead of being there face to face to work with them, doing that remote. So providing people like that techniques, ways to do it. And a lot of it was just his own personal beliefs in how you manage and what you do. So anyway, I'm done.
Great examples. Thank you for sharing. Who wants to piggyback on Alan?
Tammy?
Yep, Nancy?
Just a couple of observations. First of all, I agree with Alan. I think people are craving the face-to-face meetings, and I had my first one with a B&I partner yesterday in my office, and I don't think we were 6 feet apart. We didn't care. We wanted to talk to each other. But regarding the digital communication, yes, I do agree that's the direction we're going to take, but I want to caution people to assume everything will be done in Zoom. In the past few weeks, I facilitated a training class for 33 people on a platform called Blue Jeans that I wasn't familiar with, but learned. I've been on Google Hangout calls. There's another one called Microsoft Teams. There's a WebEx one. So if you are in communication with a potential client, you need to be comfortable with the platform they may have in place in their organization and be adaptable to using it. In terms of facilitation, one of the issues that kind of bothered me when I was doing this training class for Clark is that when I'm presenting, I don't look at my slides. They're usually on the screen behind me, and I might glance at them so I know what to say. But on a Zoom call or a Blue Jeans call, you're screen sharing, it's right in front of you. And with Blue Jeans, and I don't know, was like the most I could see on the screen at any one time were 6 people. Well, then as a facilitator, it's hard for me to pick up any kind of nonverbal communication because I really can't see everyone in the room at all the time. So those are going to be challenges for us. In terms of fact finding, I had a meeting with a software development company that supports the National Security Agency. And I pick up a lot on nonverbal communication. And while it went well, and we're going to do some things together, it was a real challenge. So I think those are the things that we need to think about. But, oh, and another problem I think with the digital communication, those of you who are in B&I might have noticed this. Typically a B&I meeting is set up so that you come in and you actually network before the meeting is going to start. Well, unless you have a skilled facilitator who knows how to set up those extra little side rooms and assign people to them, the whole networking piece doesn't work, because it's just like this. I'm talking, everybody's listening. Someone else will talk, everybody's listening. You don't have that kind of energy going on. So those are just some of the things I've noticed over the past couple of weeks.
Thank you, Nancy. Who wants to go next?
Well, I've worked also on WebEx and another platform called Remo, and I'm not aware of BlueJeans, but it'll come up. I was using Zoom as a generic, as one might have used Frigidaire for a refrigerator or Xerox for a copy machine. Although Zoom really has scooped the world quickly, and they would just happen to be at the right place at the right time. And again, I found, and speak for me, I am more effective on face-to-face meetings on Zoom than I am face-to-face. And I'll have a dialogue with anybody offline as to why that is and what it is. And I don't think I'm alone, because I find other people that I speak to are finding the same things. Number one is for me to set up a meeting. I mean, Alan and I love Alan, and I haven't seen Alan in a while. I miss him. I mean, I just miss him, you know. And so I said, hi, Alan. And he and I had a little bit of a dialogue on chat, which is wonderful. And I didn't miss a thing that you were doing, Tammy. I got it all. And we've just set up a Zoom meeting for 9:30 Monday morning. I have never been able to do something like that, especially face-to-face. Now, Alan is 150 miles from me, so we couldn't have done that. And so all I'm doing is there's something like one doesn't cut out the other. So Nancy and Alan, you both are hungry for the face-to-face, and great. There's nothing wrong with that. I am not hungry for the face-to-face because of my age. I ain't going out until somebody vaccinates me and says, you're safe, you are never going to get the virus, because 2 to 3% of my age group dies when they get the virus. So my wife has threatened, if I go out and meet anybody somewhere, she locks the door, I don't get back in the house. So Timmy, I hope you got a bedroom for me, because I got no place to go. So they're never.
Come on to Texas.
I don't want to go to Texas. I'm watching what goes on down there. You guys are crazy. Austin's a good place. Anyway, nevertheless, that's what I'm saying. That there is a world that will never go back to what it was. What it will be, we don't yet know. That's the point that I make. And there are many, many companies. I've got another client, 100 people, and they're wrestling with, should they give up real estate, because everybody is so happy and productive working at home. And their biggest issue is, it's an engineering and architectural firm. So some of the computers that were desktops, not laptops, that people couldn't take them home, and they had to figure out that technology thing. But a good half to more of their clients will never come back to officing at home, including the president. He was so excited by his productivity in this time. And there are many things like that, many different, that's all I'm saying is that we will go back to that which works for a company. And if face-to-face is what's necessary and the collaboration of face-to-face, that's great. But this is offering another potential possibility. And that's what I'm excited about.
Yeah. Charles? Unmute yourself.
Yeah, I have an external speaker, so I'm a mouse. I see opportunity in this. I've dabbled in social media, but I think at this point I'm all in. I agree with the idea of a 100 to 500 employee company being a sweet spot. But where I live, that's a small market segment. And the advantage of this whole digital phenomenon, geographically, I'm not bound anymore. I mean, I can go most anywhere without leaving the house. And I guess in terms of the face-to-face, I've had some real interesting dialogue with my kids in this thing. And I come to the conclusion that there's different skills in communicating effectively digitally. I mean, there's a certain sense of vulnerability, there's a certain way to express, and it's different from face-to-face. And so I think there's value in trying to figure out how to do both. Having impact both ways.
Thank you, Charles. Rick?
Yes. The world is changing, as we know. It's dramatic. The virtual presentation is here to stay. And Arnie, you're welcome to come, whether you want to go to Austin or not, brother. It's cool. What I've found, e-speakers, because I'm a member and on the board of the National Speaker Association as well. E-speakers has put out a certification. It's not a real big deal, but what they do is you give a virtual presentation and you can now become a certified virtual presenter. So it actually tests your abilities and skills to do it. And Charles, no knock whatsoever. What we're seeing now is guys like yourself, and again, I'm trying to be politically correct here with still staying with who I am, are generationally, you're just jumping into social media. Well, my generation, younger and younger, we're in full force. I'm all over social freaking media. It's nuts because that's the way that we're getting out there. There are ways that we need to learn. Again, Tammy, right to your point, there's some reskilling that needs to be done. Is that the?
Yeah, that's the new word.
Reskilling, and we need to do that ourselves as facilitators. We need to reskill ourselves. Yeah, you got to learn what got to learn what Facebook is. MySpace it's gone away, but you got to learn what this is, and maybe we have to look at these opportunities that are out there that give us this tiny little, just a little head and shoulders above our competition and above other facilitators that are out there. If we have to stay this, I've got a client just got off and I was on a WebEx call, and I went from a Zoom call to a WebEx call back to a Zoom call today. All having to work all these different platforms with the client. They're in North Carolina, and we were talking about a in-person meeting in July. And they're like, nope, we might be able to get half of our staff there. So we're trying to figure out how do we do it half virtual, half live. There's a lot of, again, reskilling that's going on. So what do we need to do for us as, is that something you need to practice? Do you need to get out and get a certification that says, I'm a virtual presenter? It's 15 minutes, a half-hour seminar. It's nothing huge, a half-hour seminar, and then $100 or $50, whatever the cost is, to say, hey, invest in that and learn some of these little skills that we need to have now. So, I mean, as some of you can see, I've got different backgrounds. Every time I get on here, I get a different background. I've gone, and I wish I could turn my room around, but I've turned around. I invested in the big lights that they have for the camera shoots. I've got those. I went and bought a high definition camera. I've got a big Yeti, a different microphone that's all high-tech microphone. I've got lavalier microphones with long cords, so if I need to stand up. And all these little things that we need to do if we're going to have to stay virtual. Hell, I want to be in front of people. I thrive in front of people. But here's where I'm having to do all my meetings right now, just like this. So how do you become the best there? Is finding all these little niches and tools and reskilling ourselves. So,
I wondered why you look so good. I didn't realize you got that camera. That's amazing. I got to get one of those.
It also has fix my appearance on there too. There is that.
Wow.
Yeah. So
really
here I go.
looking.
I'm going to be really good. I'm going to be Alan. I'm not going there. Tell me what a good boy I was. But that's all I got. Thanks.
I'm proud of you, brother.
Okay, I want to push back on Rick a little bit in this age thing about how older people aren't involved in social media and all this. I'm way older than you. I know that. I have been involved in technology forever. I have used social media forever. I embrace the whole concept of the digital communication. So don't be so quick to assume if someone is a certain age, they don't understand or embrace it. That's just not true. And that always bothers me when people say, oh, hey, I'm 71. I'll be 72 in August. I'm still out there going strong. I'm setting up some activity using Zoom in Cameroon in a few weeks. So just be careful about putting people in buckets.
Mea culpa. And I tried to position it, and as I said, I want to be politically correct and position it. But as a generalization, what we're finding is, that the generationally is we're gonna lose a lot of early retirements are gonna come. I think that's gonna be part of it.
You bet.
They're gonna go, this is BS. I'm done. This was hard enough. Not everybody. Again, let me make sure I'm absolutely clear, Nancy, and I totally respect you. It's as a general statement, we're going to see some exits earlier than we might have, because this just was the straw that broke the camel's back at some point.
I'm shaking my head, Rick, is if you look at statistics that identify the demographic of the people who are re-entering the workforce these days, it's people who are over 65. And they're doing it not some because they need it, but because as you retire, because I know you find out it's so easy to get bored and you want to do something. And keep in mind, it's my generation that went from mainframes to laptops to cell phones. We transited that whole technical component. So, and now you've got older people, grandmas talking to their kids on Zoom. So while I agree with you, it's probably some, I think the pendulum is more on the other side, that people of an older generation will be embracing this technology and using it. So that's just sort of,
just
look at that demographic. That's the largest number of people going back to the workforce.
Last Sunday, I lost a friend that I've known since I was 9 years old. And there will be a Zoom funeral this Friday. It'll be the second Zoom funeral I've been on over the last month and a half. That industry will not survive where if there is a funeral home that doesn't become expert at Zoom funerals, they will go out of business, because it will be such a competitive disadvantage. I mean, using an example, I'm saying everybody go after funeral homes. I mean, because what the Zoom funeral now allows people to do from all over the world, come and memorialize people that have died that could never happen in the past. I mean, just as an example of an incredible difference in how to deliver something. And again, it just came to me as we were speaking. And the other thing is, I'm also finding there are many businesses, after they've done the PPP requirements for not letting staff go. And the PPP requirement is you got to keep 80% of your staff. It doesn't say which staff. It's just 80% of your staff. And so that there will be a lot of older people that aren't coming back, and a lot of younger people that will take their place. I mean, that will happen. Good progressive companies may use the opportunity to upgrade staff and find staff that are flexible, maybe cheaper, but at least flexible. That's what I'm saying, that we have yet to know the incredible amount of change that will happen over the next year to 2 years.
Yeah. Thank you. Steve, you've had your hand up for a little while.
Yeah, so I just wanted to say that so much of what dealing with this new technology is really for us to be rethinking kind of what it means to be doing the work we do in using this new technology, because we can't just do the same thing we do going to facilitate a group and just shoving it into a Zoom kind of format. I think that I've had the benefit of being part of a series of discussions on really how to rethink what is the objective of what we do and fit that within the tools that are available for software like Zoom or WebEx, and really use the tools. So if in fact you're in a facilitation kind of mode, how do you really use the Zoom tools to create the discussion, to really have the interaction, to have the engagement that's required, to really make a facilitated kind of session really meaningful for the participants. And that requires each of us to really understand how do you use breakout rooms? How do you move between the breakout rooms as a facilitator to gauge whether the discussions are being meaningful? How do you set up those kinds of discussions? What kind of time frame do you allow for those kinds of discussions? How do you come back in a group scenario and really report back? Are you using the whiteboard, for example, to capture the group summaries, or how other kind of mechanisms are you using? Do you use annotation, for example, and putting up stuff and encouraging people to engage on that? So there's lots of different ways in which we as people that are running these kinds of meetings and generating the kinds of interaction really need to step up and really understand how better we can use these tools to really make a meeting so much more meaningful. I was just helped put together a large national meeting of our religious organization, where we had to conduct business over it, and we had voting items that we had to deal with. We created, using the polling mechanism, the ability to really quickly gauge whether you had a yay or nay kind of vote on a particular item. Those were all set up beforehand. But it takes that kind of proactive understanding of what the tools are, and really rethinking how you need to conduct a meeting, because a Zoom meeting is not going to last for 6 hours. We all know that. You're going to get burned out, right? So you have to also think about the kinds of timeframes that you're dealing with your groups, or with the participants that you're dealing with, parsing out kind of reasonable amounts of time before you need to have a break and get people away from their screen to refocus their eyes and take a bio break. There's lots of those kinds of things that as we create and design our facilitated sessions, or have our individual coaching sessions, or even a group coaching session, to really rethink from the perspective of the participants, and to continue their level of engagement and feeling that they're getting benefit. It's just a different way of thinking about this, but really understanding the tools that exist with this new technology and take it to that next level. So those are the kinds of things that I'd like to just make sure everyone is thinking about as we all do our work.
Absolutely. Thank you. And you got a couple of thumbs up on that. And we're even, the 3 mini processes that we built as we went through this process, we are now, adding those techniques right into the facilitation. We know that agility training is going to change. So, not suggesting you don't follow Rick's virtual certification, but we know that as we build facilitation manuals, as we do agility training, that we're going to have to build some of these pieces in to help new affiliates be more agile, so that they can facilitate effectively face-to-face when that comes back, and Zoom.
Yeah, the one thing that I have to add is that, particularly for Zoom, large facilitation groups, you can't do it yourself. There's no way you can do it yourself. And so you have to find either other people that you can count on that are part of your team, the team that you're facilitating, who can take ownership over managing the chat box, or muting everybody, or allowing people, making sure that the speakers that want to speak are recognized, so that they can come and add to the discussion. But as a facilitator, or the person running the meeting, you can't be expected to be on top of all those aspects of how a meeting and all the things that need to be reviewed, and just you're focused on trying to keep the discussion moving. And so it's really important to have those other people behind the scenes helping to keep everyone kind of on kind of the straight and narrow. And the other piece of these kinds of Zoom meetings is really the ability to make sure that everyone has time to be able to speak. And so oftentimes it's really a time management issue, and giving people, like, you got a minute and a half, and that's all you got. And if you go over your minute and a half, somebody's going to mute you, as a way to encourage the diversity and the ability for everyone to come up to bat and input into the meeting. So with that, I'm going to mute myself.
Adam, you got your hand up.
I do. Just as a dovetail onto what Steve said about learning the tools, a small thing to think about, but a big consequence if you get it wrong, as a lot of these platforms are being bandied about which ones to use. Make sure some cybersecurity concern is put into these things. Zoom made the papers, and rightly so, and they have a nation state as their investment vehicle, China, and they had the money to spend on it, but a lot of these smaller companies don't, and it could be a real problem as far as disclosing data, things like that. And the other thing is some organizations, that Nancy and I work with the U.S. government from time to time, and we run into situations where they won't allow a specific tool because it hasn't passed that muster. This is a small thing, like I said, but one more thing in your checkbox as far as skills to learn.
Thank you for that. Who would
Hey,
like
Tammy,
Yep.
you talked about an opportunity, which I thought was a good one, which is key process improvements.
Mm-hmm.
And we haven't gotten back to talking about that. Facilitations, hell, I was doing Skype 8 or 10 years ago with strategic planning, so it's just a matter of which platform you're on. What about the key process? If I do team leadership and sales training and strategic planning, I never got into the process improvement. Is there opportunities for folks to pick that up nowadays, or it used to be a pretty intensive training session?
Absolutely. Trusted Advisors still does it, and we will do it virtually. Obviously your internal coach, Gerard, is the guru on that, but yeah, affiliates can pick that up if we haven't run one for a while just because we haven't had people say, but I've been talking with some affiliates one-on-one, and I think that's going to really come back. So
yeah, I think it's just listening today. That's one of the key opportunities probably for us. People aren't really willing to spend a bunch of money right now. They should be on training, as you point out, but it's just discretionary spending is on hold with most people. So that would be an interesting approach. So I'll have that conversation with Gerard.
Yeah, because I believe it strongly, and many of you that I've talked with one-on-one are reinforcing it, because retooling the organization and their processes, whether it be administrative or manufacturing, it doesn't matter. Every process is going to have to be looked at. I heard somebody behind Tom.
Tammy, it's me, Nancy. I kind of switched to another subject that was alluded to in your slides. It's something that I know you approached at our last summit, the concept of emotional intelligence, and we're incorporating that into our materials. And I think that's a skill, or at least a behavior that we would be very helpful in facilitating now, because it's going to cause people more and more to be aware of their own emotions and how they handle or judge the emotions of others. And I shared this with Steve. I did something yesterday because I try things. I was setting up some assessments, and the Intermetrics forms are also with ours. So they have one on emotional intelligence. So I took that with the data about me to see what it said about me and emotional intelligence. And they have added a new attribute that blew me away. They have an attribute that identifies freedom from prejudice. And I was given our environment right now, how valuable would it be for us to be able to facilitate a discussion around that? So I did reach out to Jay, and it basically is defined as if you have a freedom from prejudice, you tend to judge the person for the person and not for their culture or not for their race. So if we could be more proactive in finding ways of having them adapt their tools to ours so we could use that, I think that would be an incredible help.
Thank you for that. Charles posted a question in the chat. Has anyone attempted to facilitate cycle time virtually?
Just curious.
Yeah.
More of a question, like the graphical editor and all that, how well that works with a group.
Yeah.
You know,
I don't know of anybody who has Charles right now.
But one of the things that I've come to learn about is that there's an app that you can use as part of your virtual kind of Zoom meetings that are just Post-it notes. And it's very similar to like what we've all learned about cycle time reduction and process improvement of putting up Post-it notes. And you could put it up, you could use the tools and get those comments and actually do a process improvement. And I just can't remember the app that I was introduced to, but it works very much like when we were learning about and posting all the Post-it notes and then seeing where you could move things around. So it was a really interesting kind of connection when Charles was talking about these process improvements, or Tom was talking about it too, about process improvements and cycle time reduction kinds of facilitations.
Thank you. So we've got 4 minutes to 4. Anybody else want to add? I want to be respectful of the time.
Tammy, I'd like to just say that my takeaway from this is, in terms of reskilling and being agile and being ready at the moment for anything that may change, is that we don't know what the future may be. So I'm saying that there will be a hybrid. You may be facilitating before someone that's on another PC, on another computer, or you may be facilitating to a team that's live. So just being nimble, being agile in terms of being ready. What does it mean in the future? We don't know. But if we continue to do what's been recommended here, if we're practicing it and walking the walk, when it's time to do that, we'll be ready.
You'll be ready.
Yes, I'm hearing, I actually met with someone through Zoom yesterday, and she was a little nervous because she's about to present to a medical association. And she said, what are the best ways to do this? Should I ask them what tool do they use? And I said, well, you're in control. You pick what tool you think is best. This is to Stephen's point. What's the objective? What's the goal? What's the why? And then you use the tool that you think is best so that you can engage them. And that's where, we have a leg up, because we know we will be informed as to what tool we want to use. And it's easy for any of our clients to download. Most of these tools are very inexpensive. So that could be something that most of these organizations may already have. Charles, I think, said it, or Tom, I think, said, Skype's been around forever. So when I talk to people in India, that's what they're using, Skype for Business. So if we just get practicing on our own tools and our own abilities and use one another's as help and support, we'll be fine. We'll be great.
That's awesome. Thank you. I already made a comment. So we've got 2 minutes left. I want to thank you for your participation. If one of the things, and this is just in concert with everything else that's going on, the diversity and inclusion chapter is going to be unveiled at the end of June, but we have pushed it up. And it went out in the message today, so I'm changing subjects a little bit, but I'm trying to message this so that everybody gets to it. In the weekly message, what we said is, as of Monday, June 15th, the diversity chapter will be available, and it can be at any process that you purchase, LMS hard copy as of Monday. If you want the diversity and inclusion chapter in, we will insert it at no charge, because it may be a meaningful and valuable discussion, just like emotional intelligence and some of the things that we're talking about. I think some of the new chapters, culture, emotional intelligence, diversity, and inclusion, I don't think any of us knew how timely they were going to be, but they have become incredibly timely. Anybody have any final thoughts? Also, one final thought, the recording will be up. Tammy actually remembered to tape this one, so I did my job. The PowerPoint will be up with it as well, and you have my full permission. If you want to take this PowerPoint, change the last slide, it can become a marketing tool for you, because I think some of the data is powerful, and if you want to use it to hit a decision maker over the head, feel free. Really, you can just change the last slide and you can rock and roll with it. All right. Thank you for your participation, everybody. Stay safe and keep up the good work.
Thanks, Tammy.
You're welcome.
Thanks.
Bye.